First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler, and taking a look right there at Newport. Now, going back to the coast today, that's kind of a theme that we've been having going on here. But if you are going to be heading to Newport, if you're in Newport, you're going to be seeing some big things in the works here over the next several days and even going forward. And that is because there's a first of its kind wave energy project that is going to be continuing some construction starting today, really, actually today on into next week. And we're going to talk all about that right now because it's a really fascinating endeavor. This is the first time in the United States this has happened, and it's being led by Oregon State, which of course is always great, and PacWave. And right now we are joined by Burke Hales, who is the chief scientist for PacWave. And I want to thank you for being here. This is a really, really interesting topic. We're going to go into this and discuss what it is that's going on. But Burke, if you want to start off, maybe you could give a little bit of a history of what this project actually is.
Sure. Yeah, happy to do that. And thanks for the opportunity to talk to your audience. So PacWave is an Oregon State University owned and operated facility for testing wave energy devices at full scale. So we've known for a long time that there's power in waves, that there's energy in waves. We capture those energies as surfers. We deal with those energies as sailors. We deal with those energies as shoreline communities. We build breakwaters and jetties to intentionally reduce the wave energy so that we can more safely navigate from harbors to the open ocean. About 20 years ago, one of the first devices was built that actually turned this oscillatory motion, this up and down motion of the waves, into a rotational motion that could be converted to electricity. So much like a generator, the linear oscillating motion of the waves can be converted into a rotational motion that can be converted to electricity in very traditional ways. The challenge has been that it's very, very hard to test these devices because there are no in-between spots. You either do a test in a tank or some small facility. You can test the power generation componentry, but actually doing the test in the ocean with the full-scale device, with the fully energetic waves, is very, very hard to do. You have to have a huge amount of infrastructure ready for you to be able to actually transmit the power from the site of generation back to shore. You have to have a vast array of environmental and regulatory permits to allow you to put these devices in the water and monitor them appropriately. And then ultimately you have to build the device, and these devices are large. They're as big as a house or bigger. And getting those devices in the ocean with a accredited, certified power transmission facility associated with them so that power can be converted from wave power to electrical power, transmitted to the shore, and ultimately put on the electrical grid. There's very, very few places, only a couple of places in the world where that can be done. And so we're building the first in the Americas, either North or South America, wave test site, and it'll be right off the coast of Newport here in Oregon.
Wow. I mean, that's just even what you just described there. That's a tremendous undertaking. I didn't realize. I mean, once I hear you spell it out, I understand how difficult that is to actually accomplish all of that. And this is something that's been in the planning stages, I would imagine, for quite a while here for Newport. Is that right?
Yeah, for a long time, well over a decade, the initial discussions started, and about 8 or 9 years ago, we started the permitting process to get authorizations to actually put these kinds of devices in the water, to anchor them, to generate power. And to do so in such a way that we're the least environmentally disruptive that we could possibly be, and also the commitment to monitor and pay attention to these devices to make sure that if something goes wrong, we can get out there and quickly address it.
I want to go into understanding exactly how the project works. We've got some imagery, some diagrams, so we're going to do that. But before even that, just to ask the basic question, what is it about Newport that makes it so special for this project?
Yeah, so Newport has this great convergence of a really energetic ocean. Anyone who's been out to the coast, there are storm watchers who head out intentionally when things are terrible. There are folks who think they would love to get out on the ocean and go catch albacore or see whales, and they understand, the energy of the waves when they start to feel a little woozy, a little nauseous, and so Newport has this great wave resource. It's why we have, surfers that come from all over the world to surf in Newport. It's why we have, it's why we have these, intense events that shape the coastline. That energy is largely untapped from a human perspective, and we've got it, and it's right there. What's different about us and, say, a Northern California site is that we have a better wave climate than the California sites do. This is an excellent site. And what's different about this wave climate and something in, for example, the Washington coast or the Oregon coast is that Newport is a much more developed deep water harbor with a really resilient local utility grid. So these waves are there, and they're right next to this infrastructure that will allow us to transmit that energy to a functioning grid. And so we're the interface between the wave and the grid.
So it really is just the perfect convergence of so many different things all at one spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking at let's talk about the project itself, and I've got just a couple of things here to help people, visualize this a little bit more and understand the scope of what this is. We have this map here that showcases where we are in Newport. There, south of Newport. Is that at Driftwood State Park? I believe is where some of the disruption is going to be happening.
That's right. So the rectangle that's out at sea there, that's labeled as PacWave South, that's just about due west from the Newport Airport, the community college, that part of South Beach. The inside edge of that rectangle is 7 miles from the beach, and so since the Earth is curved, you as an observer at the beach, you can't see much further than about 3 miles from the shore. So this will almost entirely be invisible to spectators unless you're out there in a vessel for that rectangle. The dashed lines coming from that rectangle down to the southeast and toward shore, those are the subsea cables that we'll be installing, starting at some level in preparation in the coming days, but for the bulk of the installation will happen in 2024. Those cables run under the seafloor. They're laid on the seafloor and then buried about 6 feet deep, and then back to the series of infrastructure that will be built at Driftwood. So what you're showing there is the drilling that we did at Driftwood to install the conduits that the cable will come to shore in.
Gotcha.
Those conduits come out.
The conduit's laid down right now, right?
Yeah, the conduit's in place, and it comes out through the seafloor at about 50 meters of water, or 50 feet of water depth. And then the cables will be pulled through those conduits back to the vault at Driftwood Beach. Driftwood Beach is a park that was made accessible through an extensive set of agreements with Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. And we did this work. We got into Driftwood in late spring, early summer of 2021, and we're complete with the construction work by spring of 2022. And the park, once we were done, was reconstructed, brand new parking lot, brand new sidewalks, new ADA approved access to the restroom facilities there, a viewing platform. And all you can see now of the work in the park is a set of manholes that go into the vault where the cables will pull in. Wow,
it's all completely covered back up, and actually sounds like improved or upgraded a few things in the park on top of that.
Yeah, better than we found it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I want to go into this about how this works. Now that we understand the scale of it, how far out it really is, we've got a map here that showcases it a little bit more as far as what is happening when you get into this. So here we are at, I'm assuming this is somewhere near the park, but I'll have you walk us through. You just tell me what it is that we're looking at here.
Yeah, so what happens is that out at the site, at the test site, what are deployed are things that we familiarly call WECs, or wave energy converters. And the wave energy converters sit, at the sea surface or very near it, and they experience the full range of motion of the wave field.
And we're talking about these over here.
Yeah, that's right. And those devices are anchored to the seafloor. You can see the anchors sort of schematically represented there. They have a cable that we call an umbilical that comes from the device, and that actually plugs in, much as an extension cord will plug into our cables on the seafloor. And I have to say, that the connector that we'll plug into is about as big as me, right? So these are sort of 6 foot long, 2 foot diameter connectors that we'll plug into, because we're talking very high power, megawatts of power.
All coming
Those
off of these devices that are capturing that from the waves.
That's right. So the devices feel the full motion of the waves. They've got what they call power takeoffs or power converters aboard that transfer that oscillatory motion of the waves into electrical power. That power is conditioned and transformed into a voltage that's high enough to drive it through the 20 kilometers or so of cable back to the sea floor. And then once the power comes through those sea cables, along the seafloor, under the park, under Highway 101, back up to our substation, it's further conditioned, monitored, characterized with accredited testing components, and then put back onto the Central Lincoln People's Utility District grid.
So this is actually power that people are going to be utilizing.
It will. Now, I want to make sure that everyone is, doesn't have their expectations set too high. This is a test site, not a production site. And the idea is that the devices will come here to optimize their power harvesting efficiency, to make sure that they're seaworthy enough to withstand, an environment like the Oregon coast. And what we anticipate is that, each device, given the characteristics of our cable, could produce up to 5 megawatts. There aren't very many devices out there right now that are doing more than about 1 megawatt, and all of those numbers are peak power. And so the average power, might be in the neighborhood of, 100 kilowatts or something like that. And so we're not talking about powering, Lincoln County. There will be some additional power added to the grid, but it's not a huge amount, and people shouldn't expect their power bills to change, for example, as a result of this.
Right, and that's because it is just testing these devices out. And I noticed
That's
even
exactly right.
taking a look here at this, I know that's a little bit zoomed out for anybody, but we'll have this so you can see it closer. But lots of different kinds of devices, it looks like. And I guess that's the whole point. That is this being a test site.
That is the whole point. And I'm still having trouble with being one of the senior faculty here at Oregon State. It seems like yesterday I was a teenager driving through the Columbia Gorge and seeing these contraptions being brought out to the windy side of the Pacific Northwest, and the variety of devices that were being tested and tried out as wind turbines. Really, there's a huge diversity. They look, anything from like old style farm windmills up to these sort of, spiral ribbon devices. But if anyone goes out to, the Eastern Oregon countryside around Condon or Arlington or places like that, you'll see this vast field of wind turbines out there, and they all are the same design. And if anyone's fortunate enough, for example, to go to Maui, where there's a huge wind farm just off the Kihei side of the island, it's a vast wind farm there, and they're all exactly the same as the turbines that you see in Eastern Oregon. That's because they had the opportunity to test these devices, optimize, find the best solution. And Wave is in this very, very early stage where there are many, many different ideas about how to capture wave energy and turn it into electricity. And there just hasn't been the ability to test that and come to one optimum design yet.
Do you think once you get that optimum design that this is something that's sustainable in the future? Like say wind energy starting a couple decades ago, or is that where we're at, a couple decades out?
That's what we're thinking, and this has been really this bottleneck. They call it the valley of death for the developers, and that they do all this work to design feasibility, but they can't test to then ultimately get the capital that will support the commercial growth of these devices. And one of the things that's very important for people to recognize in terms of renewable energy is that it's a portfolio. And I use this analogy often. It's like your retirement portfolio. You have some very slow, steady producers, and you've got some higher risk, higher volatility. Wave is the slow, steady producer. We're the tortoise to the hare of wind or solar. It's a slow and steady. It might only contribute 10 or 20% of the total renewable portfolio power, but it does it in a way that's very predictable, very steady. We don't have to think about, the sun went down, therefore we don't have solar anymore. Waves don't set, right? Waves go low and slow and just keep going, for long periods of time, even if the local wind isn't blowing.
How big of a plane of I guess on the water are these going to take up? Like what's the area that this is going to take up? I don't know what the proper term would be, but you know what I mean.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, I do. Area is the proper term. The rectangle that you showed in that first map, that is 1 nautical mile in the east-west dimension by 2 nautical miles in the north-south dimension. There will be 4 berths out there. You can see 4 cables going out there that independently transmit power to and from each berth. And so, each berth is a mile wide by a half mile tall in the north-south dimension. And then the devices themselves, even the large devices, their footprint within those is maybe 10% of that area. So it's not as though we're, carpeting the ocean surface, even at this test site.
Gotcha. And for anybody that's boating out in that area, is this something that they would need to avoid, or is it pretty obvious where these are?
Yeah, so we are working very closely with all of the marine transportation agencies, the U.S. Coast Guard. Any device that goes out has to have what's called a physical aids to navigation notification that goes in with the Coast Guard. Any device that goes out there has got requirements for lighting and radar reflection capabilities. And so as soon as a device goes out, it will show up immediately on the Coast Guard charts as a notice to mariners. And the devices themselves will have, every bit of, lighting and alert signals on them that any other vessel at sea would have. Gotcha.
And let's talk about, what's happening here this weekend. So today's, depending on when people are watching this, today's August 4th, and I know there's some construction starting today, and then on the 7th, there's going to be a big change that I think people will probably see.
Yeah. Well, so the notion of construction starting is a little inaccurate. It's just, so we started with the conduit construction in early, middle of 2021. We completed that in early 22. We have a facility, the substation, power substation that's upland from Highway 101. That's under construction right now. What the vessel is doing, and the current estimate is that the vessel will be there in about a week, about the 9th or 10th. We should see it on site. What they're doing is they're preparing these conduits, which right now are sealed and filled with dry air to keep them from corroding, keeping all the marine life from thinking that's a great place to hide. I'm sure that the octopus would love to crawl in there if they weren't sealed off. And what we're doing is we're opening up those conduits and we're putting sort of a funnel, a flared end on those pipes, so that when the cable is pulled in, it's doing it through a gradual radius orifice that allows the cable to be pulled in with low friction and low potential harm to the cable.
Gotcha.
The vessel that we showed, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. That's what I was going to ask about the vessel.
Yeah, so the vessel that we showed earlier will be anchored at the conduit ends, and those conduit ends are about a mile from the shore. And being on the ocean, the perspective of distance is sometimes a little bit misleading. A mile feels like it's a long way away. This is a large vessel. It's 265 feet long. It will be anchored up, and people on the beach, will see a vessel that appears very, very close. And so it will anchor there for, 10 days or 2 weeks. We'll have commercial divers down at the end of the conduits doing this work, cutting the conduit ends off, applying the new ends. And so that's going to be, from a ocean spectator, a tourist perspective, that's going to be a pretty dramatic event to have that vessel right there, right at that beach.
And that's, I said the estimate's sometime around about a week from now, so the 9th or 10th, somewhere around there. Then how long will that take?
We think the vessel will spend about 2 weeks working on the conduit ends, and then it is doing some work moving out towards the site where it's actually collecting samples and making measurements of the seafloor. When the cable is actually installed, there's another vessel that will come out, will lay the cable on the seafloor, and then we'll come back with a burial device that will bury the cable so it's 3 or 4, 5, 6 feet below the sea surface or the seafloor surface. And we need to know sort of how how stiff the sediments are, how difficult they're going to be to do this trenching to bury the cable. And so they're making a set of measurements for that purpose, heading out towards the site. And they'll be out there for another couple of weeks, but probably, by the 17th or so of August, the vessel will start to move offshore and will stop being visible from shore after it gets about 3 miles out.
But will be a show there during that time for anybody who's going to be heading to Newport. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is just a really, really, very interesting project and could have so many ramifications, going forward, being able to test all this stuff out. First one in the Americas, and, you can have all these different designs to see what works right. I mean, this has got to be pretty exciting for you.
Yeah, it is. It's very exciting. And you asked about the planning process. It's been over a decade and lots of work with the local communities. Had really a great relationship with the Newport commercial fishers who basically helped us choose the site. They may have actually chosen it for us, and we've had a great relationship with them as a result of that. So it's an exciting time, and it's always great when you move from the planning to the execution, and that's where we are right now.
Yeah, and get to see it actually in action like this.
Exactly.
Well, Burke, I want to thank you very much for joining us to talk about this. Really, really interesting stuff. And thanks for giving all this insight into it and explaining how it works. I think a lot of people are going to find a lot of benefit from that, especially once they start seeing what's going on here the next, few days, and people start wondering what's happening out there. They can turn to this and get the full explanation. Right. Anything else that you want to add?
Let's see, two things really sort of operational. Number one is that we have a website where we're keeping the construction updates updated. It's called PacWaveEnergy.org. And even though most of the work will be happening on the vessel at sea, there will be some activity in Driftwood Park. And so the park will not be closed, but we encourage people to think carefully about driving into, what will have some active construction going on. You probably don't want to bring your fifth wheeler into Driftwood Park for the next few weeks.
All right, that's a fair warning for everyone. Well, and go there to that website to find out more, and we'll have this up. And Burke, thank you very much for being here with us today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Y'all have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. And for everybody who's tuning in and watching live, thank you very much for being here. If you're watching after the fact, that's great too. So just so you know, we live stream on Facebook, on YouTube, on our apps, which we've got apps for Fire TV, Roku, Apple TV. We're on our website. So lots of places to find us. But the main thing to know is that we live stream here every weekday, 1 p.m., 1:30 p.m., somewhere in that hour. We're always going to be here. And if there's breaking news, we'll be here too. You can watch the videos afterward on our YouTube channel for Fox 12 Oregon. So always go there. You can check out everything that we cover, which is a lot of stuff. A wide range of things are covered here on this show. And that's part of the fun of it. You can always send me an email. fox12now@kptv.com. That's fox12now@kptv.com. If you have an idea for a segment or something you want to do a deeper dive on, you want to know more about something, send me that email. Let's talk. We'll see if we can make that happen. I'm going to sign off for now, and we'll talk. Well, coming up here in just a few, actually, something else. We have the video version of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. The video version is going to be on here shortly, so you'll want to stick around for that. The whole gang talking about weather. It's exactly what you think it is. It's great. So that's coming up, and but I'm signing off. Stick around. Watch that in a minute. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.